This year, WNBA players have gotten exactly what they wanted. Caitlin Clark has essentially missed the entire season, and the WNBA has suffered the consequences.
The WNBA is officially in full meltdown mode, and we're not talking about some minor crisis management here. We're talking about complete institutional panic. Caitlin Clark, the one player who single-handedly dragged this league from the shadows of irrelevance into mainstream consciousness, might not return this season. And suddenly, everyone from league executives to desperate players to heartbroken fans is asking the same terrifying question: what happens to the WNBA without its golden goose?
Fortunately, I'm starting to get this gut feeling that we might not even see Caitlin back on the court this season, and that might actually be now. ESPN had August 12th as the circled return date for Caitlin Clark to get back onto the court, and just yesterday she was listed as a game time decision for today's game against the Dallas Wings. And then after practice yesterday, Coach Stephanie White basically came out and said, like, no, Caitlin Clark hasn't even been practicing, so they changed it from a game time decision to her being out.
The writing has been on the wall for weeks now. Clark has missed 19 out of 32 games this season, dealing with what seems like an endless parade of soft tissue injuries. Left quad strains, left groin issues, right groin problems, you name it. But here's where it gets really concerning. Head coach Stephanie White continues to give the most non-committal, panic-inducing updates imaginable. There's no timetable, she keeps saying. We're taking it day by day. Translation? They have absolutely no idea when or if their franchise player is coming back.
No return to practice. She's been able to get a little bit more in her full court running, with her all of her body weight. It's really building up from doing minimal to then building some endurance to do longer periods of time. She's been able to do a little bit more on the court in terms of how she moves, but not into practice yet.
Now, not into practice yet. That is obviously a negative as far as how soon Caitlin Clark will be back, because she will be in practice before she returns to the court. I would guess at least a few practices before she returns to the floor.
Meanwhile, the Indiana Fever just signed veteran point guard Odyssey Sims to a hardship contract. And this isn't just depth management. This is crisis mode. When you're bringing in 33-year-old journeyman players on emergency deals because your backup guards Sydney Colson and Ari McDonald are out for the season, you're not planning for a quick return. You're planning for survival.
This is what the Indiana Fever organization's been doing way too much. They dangle Caitlin Clark like a carrot, and we're all rabbits trying to get it. And then last minute, they'll let you know, oh, hey, Caitlin Clark's not available. Midday or something like that, while everybody's traveling to get to the arena. Then you get to the arena, she ain't there.
If you are enjoying, please subscribe. But let's talk about what this really means for the fans, the people who fell in love with basketball because of Caitlin Clark. These aren't just casual observers. These are devotees who planned vacations around Fever games, bought jerseys, and converted entire households into WNBA watchers.
I'm wondering, why did the Indiana Fever and Stephanie White decide not to come out and say, hey, she's not practicing. She's not going to be playing in this game. And this is why I've got a problem. Because there's gambling implications here. All right? There's gambling implications, and there's the implications of we've got a nationally televised game on ESPN. We want to sell as many tickets as possible. And by the way, charge the most money we can get gate revenue, yada, yada, yada.
Now, they're watching their screens refresh obsessively, hoping for any sign of good news, any hint that Clark might return. Instead, they're getting Stephanie White's concerning updates that she hasn't returned to practice yet and is only doing full court running with all of her body weight, which, let's be honest, sounds like code for we're nowhere near basketball activities.
Can't wait until Caitlin Clark is back. She's the most dynamic, electric player in the WNBA. Great job, Lexi. Scott said, have patience, at least several more weeks. Now, whoa.
The fan panic is palpable and justified. This isn't their first rodeo watching Clark battle injuries this season, but each setback feels more ominous than the last. When she was out earlier in the season, ticket prices plummeted by 71% in some cases, with Chicago Sky games dropping from $86 to $25, crashed by over 50% for games without her. But at least then, there was hope. There was a timeline. Now there's just uncertainty and a growing sense that something is seriously wrong.
Maybe it's just me, but there seems to be a massive decline in mainstream interest in the WNBA this season. Last year, there were so many stories in the WNBA, it was hard to keep up. Over the past couple of weeks, outside of Airborne Wiener, there's really been nothing to talk about. Think about it. What is the biggest storyline right now?
Here's what makes this situation absolutely terrifying for the WNBA. They've built their entire 2025 marketing strategy, their television deals, their attendance projections around one player. Caitlin Clark isn't just a star, she's the entire solar system. Without her, WNBA games average 549,000 viewers, which is respectable, but nowhere near the 1.26 million that Fever games pull. She's not just moving the needle, she is the needle. And now, that needle might be broken for good. Clark herself admitted on Sue Bird's podcast that, "I've never been through anything like this," when discussing her injury struggles. For someone who never missed games due to injury until this season, the mounting physical problems have to be mentally devastating. But here's the kicker. She also revealed that the pressure to return is immense, saying she feels a responsibility to be there because of the interest she's generated.
Being active and playing 4 games and then not, and like not feeling the best, and then like frustrated of like how hard I worked in the off season, and then like all I do is rehab and like continue to do this process, and just like trying to trust that the best I can. And obviously there's really frustrating days, and there's days where like it's a little bit easier and like you're very, very motivated and like you're close to the finish line of getting back and being back, and then like it's not like I have a training camp to like build up to like playing my first game again. It's like, no, like you're tossed into game 30, like go try to play well. Like it's hard. Like
the Indiana Fever's desperation moves tell you everything you need to know about their internal assessment. Signing Odyssey Sims isn't just about depth, it's about survival. When your franchise player has missed more games than she's played and you're bringing in hardship contracts just to field a competitive roster, you're not planning for a 2-week absence. You're planning for something much, much longer. But the real tragedy here isn't just about basketball, it's about what happens when you put all your eggs in one basket and that basket starts to crack. The WNBA spent the entire offseason hyping the Caitlin Clark effect, building entire marketing campaigns around her star power, scheduling games in bigger arenas to accommodate the crowd she draws. Arena moves from 4,000-seat venues to 20,000-seat stadiums specifically to handle Clark's drawing power. Now, those same arenas are looking embarrassingly empty when she's not there. The All-Star Game saw a 36% drop in viewership when Clark couldn't participate due to injury, even though it was held in her adopted hometown of Indianapolis. That's not just a statistical blip. That's a market correction that reveals just how dependent this league has become on one person.
The Indiana Fever go out and pick up Odyssey Sims, a former second-team All-WNBA player, somebody who just as recently as June 1st this season dropped 32 points on the Phoenix Mercury.
The psychological impact on her fellow players has to be staggering too. Players who spent months throwing shade at Clark, voting her 9th among guards in All-Star voting, are now watching their own arenas turn into ghost towns without her. Charles Barkley called it petty jealousy, and he wasn't wrong. But now that jealousy is backfiring spectacularly because these same players are realizing that their paychecks, their national television appearances, their relevance, it all depends on someone they've been trying to tear down. What's absolutely mind-blowing is how the WNBA managed to fumble this situation so badly. You have a generational talent, someone who set attendance records, broke viewership marks, and made the league profitable, and somehow you've managed to break her. Clark has dealt with 4 separate injuries this season. Hand problems in preseason, left quad strain, left groin issues, and now this right groin problem. That's not normal wear and tear. That's a pattern that suggests either overuse, poor training management, or both.
What's going on in Indiana is that I feel like a lot of these people in the front office, a lot of these people up in Indy for the Fever do not care for Caitlin Clark for whatever reason. You know, Scott Atkins could be one of them. Not saying that he is, but it's looking like he don't care for Caitlin Clark. We know clear as day that Stephanie White has been looking in certain areas not to be feeling the Caitlin Clark effect. I don't know, but this stuff is definitely looking concerning because it's showing us that could there be more to her injury and they're not being transparent.
And let's be brutally honest about what no timetable really means in professional sports. When teams and coaches start using that phrase, especially this deep into a season, they're preparing fans for the worst-case scenario. Stephanie White's comments about taking it day by day and focusing on Clark's long-term health sound noble, but they're also exactly what you say when you're not sure someone's coming back. The desperation is showing everywhere you look. The Fever's emergency signing of Odyssey Sims, the constant non-updates from coaching staff, the visible panic from a league that went from record-breaking success to potential disaster in the span of a month. This isn't just about losing games. This is about losing the one thing that made people care about the WNBA in the first place.
I mean, it's not my first time just coming to a new team and coming in and just being me. The biggest thing is just doing what I do best. Playing defense, playing hard, doing whatever the team needs. Obviously, I know they've been down with the injuries. Prayers up for Sid and Ari. Love them both. But like I said, I'm excited to be here, and I'm not going to do too much. But whatever coach tells me to do is what I'm going to do and have fun and enjoy my teammates.
Here's the harsh reality that nobody wants to admit. The WNBA without Caitlin Clark is just another niche sports league that most people ignore. The numbers don't lie. Viewership drops by more than 50% when she's not playing. Ticket prices collapse by 70% for games she misses. Merchandise sales stall. Social media engagement plummets. She's not just the face of the league, she's the entire marketing department. But what makes this situation even more heartbreaking is watching the fans who discovered basketball through Clark now facing the possibility that their introduction to the sport might be ending before it really began. These are people who bought season tickets specifically to watch her play, who planned family outings around Fever games, who converted their friends and family members into WNBA supporters. Now they're left holding expensive tickets to games featuring players they've never heard of and don't particularly care about watching.
And that's why Caitlin Clark is so great, because Caitlin Clark is the magnet. She's the magnet, the needle. I'll say magnet in this case. She draws a big audience. And with that big audience, you learn about the other teams by watching the Fever. And since they play each other so many times, and there's only 12 other teams they play, why'd I have to watch the other teams for? Seriously, why? I don't find the other teams that interesting.
The ripple effects are already visible everywhere. Arena attendance for non-Clark games has remained flat despite all the hype about WNBA growth. Television ratings for other matchups are barely beating last year's numbers. The Golden State Valkyries' inaugural games drew decent crowds, but nothing approaching the Clark-level hysteria that the league got addicted to. And here's what makes the fan panic so justified. Caitlin Clark has made it clear that she won't return until she's 100% herself. For someone who's never dealt with chronic injuries before, who built her entire identity around being available and dominant every night, this has to be mentally crushing. She's not just dealing with physical pain, she's dealing with the weight of carrying an entire league's expectations while her body breaks down. The Fever's recent moves suggest they're preparing for an extended absence, possibly for the rest of the season. When you sign hardship contracts for backup point guards and your coach is talking about long-term health considerations, you're not planning for a quick return. You're planning for the possibility that your franchise player might not see the court again until 2026.
Caitlin Clark should not be thrown back into any mix if she doesn't have significant practices under her belt before she goes into game speed. You can try to simulate game speed as much as you want in practice. You will never be able to. Game speed is game speed. There's also a lot more adrenaline, all of these different things pumping when you're playing in front of a sold out crowd that the Indiana Fever do every single night. If I'm their coach, she needs to practice for at minimum a week. At the minimum, she needs to be doing everything in practice for at least a week before you throw her back in the mix.
Meanwhile, fans are left in limbo, desperately refreshing social media for any sign of progress, any hint that their favorite player might return. The psychological torture of watching every practice report, every coach interview, every medical update, hoping for good news that never seems to come. These people fell in love with basketball because of Caitlin Clark, and now they're facing the possibility that she might be done for the year. The WNBA created this monster by building everything around one player, and now they're facing the consequences. Without Clark, they're back to being a niche league that struggles to fill 4,000-seat arenas and draws viewership numbers that wouldn't impress a college basketball game. The Caitlin Clark effect wasn't just about one player's impact, it was about the entire league's dependence on her star power.
Like, Stephanie White was saying that she's not done anything with the team. Like, she's not even shooting around with the team. Like, as much as we're hearing certain things, I just don't know. I don't know. Like, let's just say several more weeks. Let's just say, for argument's sake, she's out for 3 more weeks. Several, 3.
But here's the million-dollar question that nobody wants to ask. What happens if she doesn't come back the same player? What happens if these injuries are more serious than anyone's admitting? What happens if the WNBA's golden goose never learns to fly again? The panic is real, the stakes are enormous, and the clock is ticking. Caitlin Clark's potential season-ending absence isn't just bad news for the Indiana Fever. It's an existential threat to a league that put all its chips on one extraordinary player. And right now, nobody knows if that bet is going to pay off or destroy everything they've built.